In the village of Obodo Iche, there lived a beautiful woman named Adanma. Her skin was deep brown, her hair long and black like the night, and her eyes sparkled like the stars. But the villagers feared her. They whispered behind her back, crossed the road whenever they saw her, and they never invited her to their gatherings. Adanma did not understand why. She had done nothing wrong, but the villagers knew a secret. She carried a terrible curse, a curse that made her different from everyone else, a curse that made people afraid. The villagers said Adanma was born from the river goddess Nne Mmiri, and that no human could love her without suffering. People claimed that strange things happened when she cried, but Adanma had never seen it herself. She had never cried in front of anyone. She had no reason to until the night of her wedding. That was the night everything changed. The night that turned her from a bride into an outcast. The night that made the villagers call her the woman who cried out snakes. Adanma was married to Dike, the strongest hunter in the village. He was tall, with arms like tree trunks, and a voice as deep as thunder. The wedding was grand, with drumming, singing, and dancing that lasted till stars filled the sky. Adanma was happy. She thought she had found love. But when the guests left and the night became quiet, Dike showed her a different side of himself. His voice was no longer warm. His hands, once gentle, were now rough. He pulled her close and whispered, "You belong to me now." Adanma's heart pounded. Something about the way Dike spoke frightened her. He was not the kind of man she had married that morning. His grip on her wrist was tight, almost painful. She tried to pull away, but he held on. "You are my wife now," he said. "You will do as I say." Adanma felt a lump in her throat. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she did not want to cry. She did not want to seem weak. But as Dike's grip tightened, she could not hold it any longer. A single tear rolled down her cheek. The tear landed on the mat beneath them. But instead of sinking into the woven fibers, something else happened. A small black snake slithered out from the tear, twisting its tiny body and hissing. Dike stumbled back, eyes wide with shock. "What is this?" he gasped. Adanma, just as startled, wiped at her face. Another tear fell and another snake appeared. This one was bigger, its scales gleaming in the dim candlelight. More tears spilled from her eyes, and with each one, another snake was born. The room filled with hissing, their small tongues flicking in the air. Dike screamed. He tried to run, but the snakes were too fast. They slithered towards him, coiling around his legs, sinking their fangs into his skin. He swatted at them, but more kept coming. Adanma sobbed, unable to stop the flood of tears, unable to stop the creatures that came with them. Dike's screams turned into goggles, his body twisting in pain. Then silence. When Adanma opened her eyes, Dike was lying still, his body swollen, his face frozen in horror. The snakes had vanished, leaving behind nothing but their deadly bite marks. The next morning, the villagers found Dike's lifeless body. They gathered around Adanma's hut, their eyes wide with fear. "She killed him," someone shouted. "She is cursed," another cried out. The elders arrived, their faces grim. "This is an abomination," said the oldest among them. "No woman should cry out snakes. She is not one of us," the villagers whispered among themselves, stepping farther away from her. Adanma's heart ached. She wanted to explain, but how could she? Even she did not understand what had happened. She had only cried, and he had died. The elders held a meeting that evening. They sat under the great Iroko tree, their voices low and serious. The villagers gathered around, waiting for their decision. "She cannot stay here," one elder said. "If she cries again, who else will die?" The chief nodded. "We must banish her." Adanma fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "I don't want this curse. I don't know why it happened." But the elders did not listen. The people of Obodo Iche, believed in spirits and curses, and to them, Adanma was dangerous. She had to leave before more people died. With only a small bundle of food and a wrapper tied around her shoulders, Adanma was sent away. She walked out of the village, her feet dragging in the dust. The people she once called friends turned their backs on her. Even the children who had once played near her home now hid behind their mothers. She wanted to cry, but she held it in. She could not risk calling forth more snakes. So, without a single tear, Adanma disappeared into the dark forest, leaving her home behind forever. The forest was alive with strange sounds. Owls hooted from the treetops, unseen creatures rustled in the bushes, and the wind whispered through the leaves. Adanma walked carefully, listening to every noise. She had no home now, no one to protect her. She had to survive on her own. The night grew colder and hunger gnawed at her stomach. She found a large tree with twisted roots and curled up against it. As she closed her eyes, she thought about Dike. She had not meant to hurt him, but her tears had done what her hands could never have. The next morning, Adanma woke up to golden sunlight filtering through the trees. She stretched her stiff limbs and stood up, brushing dust from her wrapper. She had to find food. She searched the forest, picking wild berries and digging up roots she recognized. As she chewed on a bitter fruit, she thought about her mother. Had she known about the cause? Had her mother hidden this secret from her all these years? Adanma clenched her fists. If her mother had known, why hadn't she warned her? Why had she let her grow up without knowing what she was? Days passed and Adanma built a small hut from sticks and dried leaves. It was simple, but it kept her safe from the cold. She caught fish from a nearby stream, sharpening stones to use as knives. She learned which plants to eat and which ones could make her sick. But no matter how much she tried to live in peace, she was still alone. She missed the sound of laughter, the warmth of people. She sat outside her hut at night, staring at the stars, wishing she could go back to a time before the curse had awakened. One evening, as Adanma washed her face in the stream, she heard footsteps behind her. She spun around, her heart racing. An old woman stood there, her back bent with age and her eyes milky white. She wore a long faded wrapper and her feet were bare. Adanma gasped. No one ever came this deep into the forest. Who are you? She asked. The old woman smiled, her voice raspy but kind. I have been watching you, child, she said. I know your pain, I know your cause, and I know where it came from. Adanma's breath caught in her throat. The old woman's voice was soft but powerful, like the wind before a storm. You know about my cause? She asked, stepping closer. The old woman nodded. Your mother made a bargain with Nne Mmiri, the river goddess. She wished for a child as beautiful as the moon, as strong as the sun. But such gifts come at a cost. Adanma's hands trembled. What was the cost? The old woman sighed. Your mother did not know it at the time, but the goddess took something from you. Your tears. Adanma frowned. But I still cry, she said. The old woman shook her head. No, child. You cry, but your sorrow is not yours alone. The river goddess changed your tears into life and death. Each tear you shed brings forth a serpent, and each serpent carries the weight of the bargain your mother made. Adanma's heart pounded. Then, how do I stop it? The old woman's eyes darkened. To break a curse, you must find its source. You must return to Nne Mmiri herself. Adanma shivered. She had heard of the river goddess, but never dared to seek her. The old woman pointed towards the east. Follow the river until you reach the place where the water glows at night. There you will find her. Adanma hesitated. What if the goddess refused to help? What if she asked for something even worse in return? But she had no choice. She could not live like this forever, hiding in the forest, afraid to cry. Thank you, she whispered. The old woman smiled, but said nothing more. When Adanma turned back to ask another question, the woman had gone, vanished like mist in the morning sun. Adanma set out at dawn, following the winding river. The journey was long and the sun burned her skin. She walked for hours, her feet aching. She crossed bridges made of vines, climbed over fallen logs, and waded through shallow waters. As night fell, she saw it, the glowing river. The water shimmered with a strange blue light, casting airy shadows on the trees. She had never seen anything like it. This had to be the place, but now that she was here, fear crept into her. Would Nne Mmiri help her or punish her? She knelt by the river, her hands trembling. Great Nne Mmiri, she called, I have come to seek your help. The water remained still. Nothing happened. Adanma's heart sank. Had she come all the way for nothing? Then suddenly the river moved. The water rose, twisting into a woman, with skin as smooth as water, her hair flowing like waves, and eyes that shone like the moon. You dare call upon me? The goddess' voice echoed. Adanma swallowed hard. I need your help. I do not want this curse. Nne Mmiri tilted her head, a slow, airy smile forming. Your mother asked for beauty and strength, Nne Mmiri said, circling Adanma like a tide pulling back before a wave crashes. She did not ask what price she must pay. Adanma clenched her fist. She did not know. You tricked her. The goddess's laughter rang through the air, cold and sharp. I gave what was asked, and you have been blessed. Your tears create life. Adanma shook her head. They bring death. The goddess sighed. A gift can be a curse. A curse can be a gift. The balance must be kept. Adanma's voice wavered. Then tell me, how do I break it? Nne Mmiri's glowing eyes studied her for a long moment. There is only one way, she finally said. You must give up all sorrow. If you never cry again, the snakes will die. Adanma frowned. Never cry? Not even once? The goddess nodded. Not for pain, not for joy, not for love. Your heart must be as dry as the desert. Adanma felt her stomach twist. How could she live without sadness, but also without happiness? Could she truly give up every feeling? But if she didn't, she would never be free. She had to decide. Adanma took a deep breath. I will do it. Nne Mmiri smiled, lifting her hand. A bright light surrounded Adanma, warm and heavy. She gasped as something pulled from deep within her chest. A glowing ember, small but powerful. As soon as it left her body, she felt empty. Her heart was no longer heavy. The pain of losing her home, the fear of the curse, it was gone. But so was something else. A strange stillness filled her. She did not feel sad, but she did not feel anything at all. The goddess stepped back and said, It is done. Adanma blinked. She expected relief, but nothing came. No happiness, no excitement, just emptiness. Go, Nne Mmiri said. Your curse is gone. Adanma turned to leave. The journey back to the forest felt strange. The birds sang, but their songs did not touch her heart. The wind blew through the trees, but she did not shiver. When she returned to her hut, she sat outside, staring at the sky. She was free. No more snakes, no more fear. But why did she feel like she had lost something even greater? Years passed, and Adanma returned to the village. The people, though cautious, welcomed her back. She married again, had children, and built a life. But something was missing. When her child took her first steps, she clapped but did not laugh. When her husband whispered loving words, she smiled but did not feel warmth. And when she saw someone in pain, she helped them, but she did not feel their sorrow. She was empty, untouched by joy or grief. She was free of the curse, but at what cost? One night, an old friend visited. Adanma, you are here, but it is like you are not truly with us, she said. Do you not feel love? Do you not feel sadness? Adanma hesitated. I do not feel anything, she admitted. Her friend's eyes filled with tears. Then, is this truly freedom? The words echoed in Adanma's heart, stirring something deep within. That night she walked to the river, the place where it all began. The water was calm, reflecting the moon. She knelt staring into the deep, and then for the first time in years, a tear fell. The moment the tear touched the river rippled, the wind howled, and the ground trembled. Something moved beneath the surface. A shadow slithered, growing larger and larger until it rose. A massive serpent, black as the void, its golden eyes burning with power. Adanma gasped, stepping back. The snake stared at her, its tongue flicking. Then it lunged. She had no time to scream. The serpent wrapped around her, pulling her into the water. The last thing she saw was the moon above, shining cold and distant. Then darkness. Darkness swallowed Adanma whole. The river's cold embrace wrapped around her, pulling her deeper and deeper. She tried to scream, but no sound came. The giant serpent coiled around her body, squeezing tightly. Then suddenly everything stopped. She opened her eyes and found herself standing in a place that was not the river, not the village, and not the world she knew. A strange grey mist swirled around her feet. The air was silent and heavy. Ahead of her, a tall figure stood, draped in flowing black robes. It was the goddess, Nne Mmiri. You have broken the balance, Nne Mmiri said, her voice echoing like distant thunder. You gave up sorrow, yet still you cried. The contract has been broken. Adanma shivered. I did not mean to. I did not want to feel anything. The goddess's glowing eyes narrowed. And yet you wish to be free? But freedom without pain is not life. It's emptiness. Adanma's heart pounded. For the first time in years, she felt fear. Was this it? Would she be punished for breaking the contract? Would she be swallowed by the river forever? Nne Mmiri raised her hand. The mist around them swirled faster, forming shapes of the past. Adanma saw her mother kneeling at the river's edge, begging the goddess for a child. She saw her own wedding night, the moment she cried for the first time and when the curse turned into a serpent. She saw the years of loneliness, the feeling of emptiness after the curse was taken. The images filled her mind, rushing like a river. Then the goddess spoke. What do you wish for now, child? Adanma swallowed hard. She had to choose. Did she want to keep her emptiness or take back her sorrow? Adanma thought of the laughter she could no longer feel, the love she could no longer embrace, and she thought of her children, her husband, her life that had felt distant, like a dream she could never touch. She did not want to live like this anymore. I want to feel again, she whispered, even if it means pain. Nne Mmiri tilted her head. Are you certain? Once you take back your sorrow, the snakes may return. Adanma took a deep breath. I would rather cry and be cursed than live without feeling at all. The goddess smiled, a slow knowing smile. She raised her hands and the mist thickened, wrapping around Adanma like a cocoon. The warmth rushed through her, filling the empty space in her heart. Her chest tightened, her throat burned. Then a single tear fell, but this time no snake appeared. Instead, the mist cleared, and Adanma found herself standing at the river's edge once again. The moon shone above her, and the water was still. She gasped, clutching her chest. She felt everything again, the joy, the pain, the sorrow, and for the first time in years, she smiled. Adanma stepped away from the river, her legs weak. She looked around. The village was not far. She could see the glow of torches in the distance. She had been gone for only a moment, but she felt like she had been gone away for a long time. She took a deep breath and walked towards her home. Would the villagers still accept her? Would her family understand? She did not know, but now she had something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Even if the snakes returned, she was ready to face whatever came next. When she reached the village, people gasped. Adanma, someone cried out. We thought you were dead. The chief came forward, his old eyes filled with suspicion. Why have you returned? Adama met his gaze. I have made peace with my curse, the villagers murmured. Some still feared her, but others looked at her with curiosity. She smiled, feeling the weight of her emotions once more. I am no longer an empty woman, she said. I am no longer afraid. The chief studied her for a moment, then nodded. Then let us see if the gods have truly set you free. The village healer stepped forward holding a small knife. If you are truly free, you will not cry out snakes, he said. If you cry, we will know the cause remains. Adama took a deep breath. They wanted to test her. She understood their fear. Slowly, the healer pressed the sharp edge against her palm, just enough to draw blood. Pain burned through her hand, and tears welled up in her eyes. She gasped as one rolled down her cheek and hit the ground. Nothing happened. The villagers watched, waiting, but no snake came. The curse was truly gone. A collective sigh of relief filled the air. The villagers looked at each other, whispering. Some still seemed unsure, but many nodded relieved. The curse has lifted, the healer said. The chief raised his staff. Then let it be known, Adanma is one of us again. Cheers erupted. Children ran towards her, touching her hands and laughing. Women embraced her, welcoming her back. Adanma's heart swelled. She was home. For the first time in years, she felt warm arms around her, felt real love and joy. She had lost much, but she had gained something greater. A life where she truly belonged. Life in the village was different now. Adanma walked alongside the other women, pounding yams, weaving baskets, and laughing with them. She played with the children. Their laughter filled her heart. She sat with her husband under the moon, their fingers entwined. She was no longer an outcast. But more than that, she was no longer afraid of herself. She had faced a goddess and had given up her emotions and also had fought back to get them. Now she understood what it meant to be human, to feel pain, to feel love, and to live. One day, as she sat by the river, she saw a reflection in the water, not just her own, but that of a woman with flowing hair and glowing eyes. Nne Mmiri, the goddess, smiled, but it was not the cruel smile of before. You have learned the lesson of sorrow and joy, she said. You understand the balance now. Adama bowed her head. Thank you, she whispered. Nne Mmiri nodded once, then disappeared into ripples. Adama touched her own face, tracing the path where her tears had once called forth snakes. She was free, truly free. Years passed, and the story of Adanma, the woman who once cried out snakes, became a legend. Children whispered it around the fires, eyes wide with wonder. But they did not fear her anymore. They saw her as a woman who had been tested by the gods and had won. Adanma lived a long life surrounded by family and friends. She never forgot the lessons she had learned. She never forgot the pain and joy that must exist together. And though she still cried, her tears only held sorrow and love, never snakes again. One day, when Adanma was old, she sat by the river once more, watching the sunset. She had lived a full life, one of love and laughter, of struggles and triumphs. She smiled as she saw her grandchildren playing nearby, their laughter echoing through the trees. She had once feared her tears, but now she embraced them. She wiped a tear from her cheek, feeling its warmth. She was no longer cursed. She was simply Adama, human, whole, and free. The villagers continued to tell her story long after she was gone. They spoke of the woman who had faced a goddess, who had walked the path of sorrow and found her way back. Her name became a symbol of strength, of resilience. And though the river still shimmered in the moonlight, whispering ancient secrets, no one feared it anymore. It was just water, just a river. And Adama, she had become a legend that time could never wash away. And so, in the village of Obodo Iche, where the earth drank deeply of old stories, Adama's tale lived on. A tale of a woman who cried out snakes, who lost everything, and who found her way back, not through magic, but through the power of her own heart. And whenever someone stood by the river and gazed into its depths, they swore they could see her reflection smiling back, forever free. Thank you so much for watching. If you got to this point, please give this video a thumbs up. It will help grow my small YouTube channel. Leave a comment in this comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this story. If you haven't subscribed yet to my YouTube channel, do well to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I post more interesting contents like this. Do well to go through my page. I have more interesting videos as well, and do yourself a favor by clicking on as many as you can and watch. Hope you enjoy the stories on my page. See you guys in my next video. Bye.